Hello, mighty companion. This is Earl Purdy, and I want to welcome you. I want to welcome you to Hardcore Course in Miracles here on Facebook Live. And we're going to talk about undermining. How do you undermine and get rid of the thought system that's based on fear and guilt and anger that causes you pain? How do you get rid of the way of thinking that causes you pain? We're going to talk about that. And so hang in there. Welcome to A Course in Miracles. We're going to start out with one of the things that the Course in Miracles says, that we should be only teaching. It's so great to be here with you, mighty companion. Here we go. Take a breath. Welcome to A Course in Miracles.
Teach only love, for that is what you are. Only love, yes, that is what you are. Teach only love, that is what you are. And teach only love. Everywhere you go, teach only love. To everyone you know, teach only love. Love is what you are. Hey, yeah. Let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Teach only love. Each and every day, teach only love. In your own special way, teach only love. Love is what you are.
Welcome, mighty companions. This is Earl Purdy, and I want to welcome you to Hardcore Course in Miracles. This is a course in how to let go of anger, guilt, grievances, lack, and the past, so you can get in touch with your real self.
Teach only love. Well, that is what you are. Teach only love. Yeah, you're a shining star. Only love. Love is what you are. Let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Teach only love. Each and every day, only love. In each and every way, teach only love. Love is what you are.
Now remember, you don't have to believe this, you don't have to accept this, you don't have to welcome this, you don't have to believe this, you don't have to accept this, you don't have to welcome this. Some of the ideas you may actively resist, and that's the truth. Some of the ideas you're going to find hard to believe, and some of the ideas are going to startle you. We're not going to analyze these ideas. We're not going to analyze the course, because you know what? Guess what? If you use these ideas, the ideas will show you that they are true. If you use the ideas will show you that they are true. If you use the ideas will show you that they are true. And guess what? Recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Teach only love. Teach only love. Yeah, yeah. Teach only love. Course in Miracles says, love is what you are. That's Brother John Christmas at johnchristmas.com. If you want to get that music, and it's based on the Course in Miracles, that's John Christmas at johnchristmas.com. Mighty companions, I'm so glad to be here with you so that we can dive deep into the Course in Miracles. I teach a Course in Miracles using the principles that the Course in Miracles teaches, which is number one, remember that you don't have to believe this, you don't have to accept this, you don't have to welcome this. Some of the ideas you may resist actively. Some of the ideas you may find hard to believe. Some of the ideas may be quite startling to you. You're not asked to judge and analyze the ideas at all, and so I'm not going to do that. I am the Divine Repetition Teacher, DRT. I am the Remembering Coach. Do you know I have been obsessed in studying and using the Course in Miracles and being a full-time teacher of the Course in Miracles for over 40 years. So I am very familiar with the Course in Miracles. And if you are very new to the Course in Miracles, you are not as familiar to the Course, as familiar with the Course in Miracles as I am. So therefore, I can be of help to you. So therefore, I can help you be able to hear what the Course in Miracles is saying without the tricks that the mind will play on you sometimes when you're just really getting deep into it. Woo! We're going to be in the text, the Foundation for Inner Peace version of A Course in Miracles, Mighty Companion. We're going to be on page 58, and we're going to start with paragraph 6, page 58, in the text of A Course in Miracles. I do very book-intensive classes. The reason why I do very book-intensive classes is so that you will no longer need me because you are studying and reading, and you now know how to read the book even better for yourself, and you tune into my classes to just reinforce your beliefs, but you don't need me. The Course in Miracles says that a good teacher is basically always trying to make themselves unnecessary. So that's what I'm doing. I want to give you so much of what I've learned and realized from the Course in Miracles that you'll no longer need me, which isn't the same as saying you won't still tune into the classes. You will still, maybe still want to tune into the classes to just reinforce your beliefs even more. I love A Course in Miracles. I love it with all my heart. You and I both know that this isn't our real ultimate home. Everybody that comes here knows that we don't have an insane creator that would create a world full of so much fear and anxiety and separation. So the Course in Miracles is saying, you've forgotten who you really are. You've forgotten your true spiritual identity. You've forgotten that you are this invincible, loving being and that you're still connected to your source. In other words, the Course in Miracles says we have amnesia. We've forgotten who we really are. And the part of us that has forgotten who we really are and thinks that it's now a separate human being, that part of you, the you that thinks you are a separate human being, the Course in Miracles calls that part of you the ego, easing God out. So the purpose of the Course is to teach you another way of looking at things that will allow you to keep your peace. Because don't you know the Course in Miracles teaches that when you have peace, you can hear the voice of the Holy Spirit, which is your inner guide. The Course in Miracles teaches that there's a part of the Creator that's assigned to each and every one of us, and that's a part of each and every one of us, our guide, our comforter, our healer. And the Course in Miracles calls that the Holy Spirit. And it says the Holy Spirit is our loving right mind, that part of us that's still in communication with our Creator, but it's also aware that we think we are separate now and we've forgotten who we really are. So we're going to start with paragraph 6, section 2, chapter 4, because on Thursdays right now, I'm really working on the chapter 4 in A Course in Miracles. It's the chapter that is that most describes the ego and what the ego is, because you're going to constantly hear the term ego when you study the Course. And each sentence in the Course in Miracles is actually like a universal law. So it's just a book in the sense of universal laws. There's another tip that I'd like to give you if you're open to it. There's another tip I'd like to give you if you're open to it. The other tip I'd like to give you if you're open to it is that when you're reading A Course in Miracles and there's something that you don't understand, don't stop and analyze it. And don't tell yourself, I'm going to keep reading that until I understand it. Keep on going, keep on reading until you come across a sentence that does make sense and resonates to you. Because the Course in Miracles is going to repeat the same statement 3 or 4 different ways, so that if you don't get it one way, you'll get it another way. So I repeat, this is 40 years plus of information and experience that I'm giving you. Do not spend time analyzing the Course in Miracles and thinking that you have to understand every sentence before you go to the next one. You keep on going when you don't understand what you're reading. Keep on going, keep on reading, and it's going to restate whatever it said several ways. The Course in Miracles is talking about how to correct our perception. And our perception is our interpretation of everything that's going on in our lives. So when you say your perception, you're really talking about your interpretation. You're talking about the meaning that you're giving to a person or a situation or circumstance. So the first sentence says, only those who have a real and lasting sense of abundance can be truly charitable. So who is it that's really a giver? Who is it that's really charitable? Well, the person that's charitable, the person that's a giver, is a person that has a real and lasting sense of abundance. So what does that mean, Earl? Well, that means that if you don't have a sense of abundance, then you're probably not a good giver, because you think you have a lot of lack. And so since you think you're lacking, you would not be very charitable. So it's only a person who has a sense of abundance, a real sense of abundance, a sense of abundance that is so strong that they know they could not lose that abundance. That's the person who gives. That's the person who's generous. That's the person who's charitable. So if you find yourself not being generous or charitable, just remind yourself that you must not have a real lasting sense of abundance. Because if you really thought you were abundant, then you would be more of a giver in whatever way that it's needed for you to give. I'm not just talking about money. So the Course in Miracles says, those who don't have a lasting sense of abundance, these are people who are not charitable. And so it says this is obvious when you consider what is involved. So to the ego, to the mind that is wrong, the Course in Miracles says the ego is wrong-mindedness, wrong thinking, fearful thinking, guilty thinking. The Course in Miracles calls that the ego. The Course in Miracles also says that the ego is insane. So another term that you can use for the ego is the insane. To the insane, to the ego, to the wrong-minded. To give anything implies that you have to do without it. So if you're a person who does not have a real, if a person doesn't have a real and lasting sense of abundance, then they believe that if they give something to somebody else, then they don't have it anymore. So that means that when you have wrong-mindedness, you associate giving with sacrificing. So do you know that when a person has wrong-mindedness, they think they are sacrificing or losing when they give something? So when a person has lack consciousness, when a person doesn't have a real sense of abundance, the Course says when you associate giving with sacrifice, when you think giving means sacrificing, then the Course says then that person is going to give only because they believe that they're going to get something better. So a person who has lack consciousness, what do? They only give when they think they're going to get something better. I'll give you $5 if you're going to give me $20 back. I'll give you $10 if you're going to give me $40 back. See, I'm going to give something to you, but I think I'm going to get something better. So a person who is wrong-minded, a person who doesn't have any lasting sense of abundance, then they think they are going to lose if they give. And so they only give when they think they're going to get something better back. So what is an inescapable law of the ego? The inescapable law of the ego is, which means, what is the inescapable law of wrong-mindedness? The inescapable law of wrong-mindedness, lack-mindedness, is giving to get. So a person who has a lack mind, a person who does not believe they have a real and lasting sense of abundance, they only give if they think they're going to get something back. So basically, they only bargain. I'm going to give you my love if you do such and such and such a thing, and I'll give to you if I think you're going to give something even better to me. So an ego is a person who thinks that giving to get is the way to go. The ego is the person that is full of fear, and they have a strong belief in lack, and they think they have lack. So we are basically talking about human beings. So the Course in Miracles says the ego always does what? It says, well, the ego evaluates itself in relation to other egos. So I have a limited mind, so I'm going to evaluate myself and compare myself to the other limited minds around me. Because another term for the ego is the limited mind. So whenever and human minds are generally limited minds. Human minds are generally only focused on the idea of being separate and being on their own, and they believe that they can be hurt and they can be in lack, and they blame other people for everything that's happening. When you're associating with your wrong mind, then you're constantly evaluating yourself in relationship to other people. So the Course says the ego, the part of the mind that believes in lack, the part of the mind that believes in getting to get, a person that believes in getting to get, they are continually preoccupied with the belief in scarcity. So a person that is wrong-minded, a person that is out of touch with their relationship with love, a person that's out of touch with their relationship to God, that person is continually preoccupied with their belief that there is not enough. So when a person is in their ego, when a person is operating from the wrong mind, from their separated mind, they are preoccupied with the belief in scarcity and lack. You see, the ego is the part of us that believes it is separate. It believes it is a human being. It believes the ego is the part of us that believes that we are born, we live a certain number of days, and then we die. The ego is the part of us that's forgotten our true spiritual identity and just thinks it's a regular human being. So the Course in Miracles says the ego, that belief in lack, that belief in fear, it comes from the belief in scarcity. So if you believe that there's not enough, then it's going to create an ego. It's going to build your ego up. And your ego is the part of you that feels afraid, that feels vulnerable, that gets angry and depressed and upset sometimes. That part of you, it exists because it originated from an idea of lack in your mind. You not having a real and lasting sense of abundance. That's what makes the ego bigger. That's what makes the fear bigger. So the Course in Miracles says that your ego's whole perception of other egos as real is what? You thinking that other egos are real. He says that's your attempt to convince yourself that you are real. See, the part of you that thinks you're separate from everybody, it's not really you. That's not really your real self. You could call it your fake self. So the fake self can only make itself exist by evaluating and relating to other fake selves. And so the Course in Miracles says its whole perception of other egos as real is only an attempt of the ego to convince itself that it's real. Don't analyze that. Don't analyze that. Don't analyze that. I just want you to hear what it's saying. Do you know that I find out often that most Course in Miracles students, they don't really know what the Course in Miracles says, let alone believe what it says, or understands what it says, that sometimes trying to read it and study it is such a challenge that sometimes you'll find that many Course in Miracles students actually have never read A Course in Miracles. They've never read the beginning to the end of the book. So just because you want to be a Course in Miracles student, that's not enough. Just wanting it is not enough in itself. You also have to be willing to do what it takes to have the peace that you want. So in order to have the peace that you want, you have to find out about the part of you that doesn't want peace. You have to know how the part of you that doesn't want your peace operates. And the Course in Miracles calls that the ego. So self-esteem in ego terms, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything more than that the part of you that thinks that it's alone, that thinks that it can be afraid, that part of you has deluded itself into accepting its reality. So when your ego thinks that it's real, when the part of you that believes in separation and fear and anger and guilt, when that part of you believes that it is real, then that part of you becomes temporarily less predatory. See, I kind of, basically if I think I'm a person who's missing something, who's lacking something, then I'm trying to get something from everybody that I'm around. So if I can stay in touch with the part of me that wants to get all the time, then the Course in Miracles says, then that makes me think that part of me that's in lack is real. And that part of me will become a little less predatory if I believe in it. So what is stress? Well, self-esteem is always vulnerable to stress. So if you are trying to get in touch with your self-esteem, build your self-esteem, then you're vulnerable to stress. And what is the Course in Miracles definition of stress? What is the Course in Miracles definition of stress? The Course in Miracles definition of stress is a term which refers to any perceived threat to the ego's existence. So what does that mean? Whenever your little separate self that thinks it's out here on its own, whenever that part of you starts to feel like it's not going to be in charge anymore, that it's threatened in any way, then that's when you say, I'm having stress. Stress means that I think there's some type of a threat to my existence. I think there's some kind of threat to my lifestyle. There's something about my life and my self-esteem and myself that feels threatened. And now I have stress. So the Course says this self-esteem is always vulnerable to stress. And then it says, what is stress? Well, stress is a term which refers to any perceived threat to your ego's existence. And what is your ego? Your ego is who you think you are. Your ego is your concept of yourself. Your ego is your opinion of you. That is your ego. So whenever your opinion of yourself, whenever your concept of yourself feels threatened, then you go through what you call stress. So that explains why people go through what they call stress. Now think about this. That was one paragraph. How many books do you study that puts that much in one frigging paragraph? That was one paragraph. That was one paragraph of A Course in Miracles. So then you have to ask yourself, well, what did it just tell me? What did it just say? Well, the first thing it said was only people who have a real sense of abundance are going to be people who are charitable. Then it said, when you don't know what giving is, when you don't have a real sense of abundance, that you believe that when you give something, it means you don't have it anymore. And so when a person associates giving with losing and sacrifice, then these are people who are only going to give if they think they're going to get something better back. So a person who is in their ego, a person who is in their lack consciousness, is a person who believes that you should just give to get. So a person who has lack consciousness, a limited mind, only gives to get, and is constantly comparing itself to everything and everybody around it. And so if you're going through a lot of stress right now, do you know that stress just means that you're feeling some threat right now to your existence and to your ego's existence? So what does a Course in Miracles student do? A Course in Miracles student is trying to remember what we just heard, because there's a connection between memory and learning, that you only can learn something that you can remember. So that's why I'm focused in on being the divine repetition teacher. Now I'm going to ask you to take a really deep breath right now. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Please share these videos. I want you to listen now. So the ego literally lives by comparisons. So what keeps a person's fear mind going? What keeps a person's limited mind going? What keeps it in existence? You keep your limited sense of yourself. If you have a limited sense of yourself, or any fears or a sense of insecurity and separation, the way you keep it going is by comparisons. So the ego is the part of you that is always comparing yourself to something or somebody else, or comparing others. So comparison is just another term for the ego. The ego lives by comparison. I'm going to compare myself with you. I'm going to compare myself with everybody around me. That keeps your fear going. That keeps your lack consciousness going. Now, what is another characteristic of a fearful, limited mind? Another characteristic of a fearful, limited mind, it says equality is beyond the ego's grasp. I'm in chapter 4, section 2, paragraph 7. And the Course in Miracles says that the ego, a fearful, limited mind, a fearful, limited person, lives by comparison, because equality is beyond the grasp of a fearful mind. A fearful mind cannot understand the concept of that we are all equals, and that we are all the same, and that we all are equally entitled to love, and that we're all equally entitled to miracles. Equality is beyond the grasp of the ego. And for an ego, which is a person who doesn't have a really strong sense of abundance, to that person, charity becomes impossible. So charity becomes impossible to who? Charity becomes impossible to a person who is full of fear, guilt, anger, separation, and a sense of lack. Those are all characteristics of what the Course in Miracles calls the ego. So what is the Course in Miracles doing right now? It's teaching you the difference between a mind that is full of abundance and a mind that is full of lack. The Course in Miracles right now is teaching you how to recognize the thoughts in you that are based on wrong-mindedness and the thoughts in you that are based on right-mindedness. In other words, don't you realize the Course in Miracles is trying to teach you the difference between right-mindedness and wrong-mindedness? So when you say ego, you could just say wrong-mindedness. So let's go back and say wrong-mindedness, where we see the word ego. The wrong-minded literally live by comparisons. Equality is beyond the grasp of the wrong mind. Charity becomes impossible when you have a wrong mind, when you have a lack mind. When you have a wrong mind, you can't be generous when you have a lack mind. When you have a lack mind, when your mind is full of thoughts of lack, when you believe that you don't have enough, when you believe that you don't have enough, when you believe that you can't give unless you think you're going to get something better, when you're out there trying to give to get, when you're out there trying to give to get, that is a characteristic of wrong-mindedness. So what else is true about a wrong-minded person, a wrong-minded mind? The ego never gives out of abundance. The ego never gives out of abundance. The wrong-minded never give out of abundance, because the wrong mind was made as a substitute for your abundance. Do you know why the concept of getting arose in the ego's thought system? Do you know why the concept of getting arose in our way of thinking? how did the concept of giving, how could the concept of getting arise in our thought system? Well, guess what? Appetites are getting mechanisms. So your appetites are just getting mechanisms. When you feel like it's time to get, you have an appetite for something. When you believe it's time to get, you have an appetite for something. So appetites are getting mechanisms. If I have the appetite for a piece of cake, I want to get a piece of cake. So appetites represent the ego's need to confirm itself. Do you know that the part of you that thinks it is on its own, the part of you that thinks it's a human being and has lost awareness of its true spiritual identity, do you know your ego has a need to confirm itself? Whatever you believe, the Course in Miracles says the fearful mind, the wrong mind, needs to confirm itself. And this is as true of body appetites as it is of so-called higher ego needs. So if I have a higher need and I say that I want to know God as a human being, then I'm going to try to get God. I'm going to try to get the truth. If I think of myself as a man and I'm trying to be spiritual, then I'm going to try to get God. I'm going to try to get the truth. The ego is all about getting, even if it's getting the truth. And that's also true of body appetites. So when if I have an appetite for food, or I have an appetite, any kind of appetite, it could be a sexual appetite, it could be any kind of appetite. This is your attempt to confirm that separate you is really who you are. Now, I want to ask you to really open your mind right quick. This is what I want you to think about. The Course in Miracles says that our only problem is that we have a huge case of amnesia. Do you know that the Course in Miracles says over and over again that the reason why we're not happy is because we've forgotten the truth of who what we really are. What we really are. We are mind. We are spirit. We are not bodies. We are not human beings. We are not human beings. We are spiritual beings expressing through a human form. You are a mind expressing itself through the body. You are a spiritual being. You are love. You are love. You are not fear. You are not guilty. You are not sinful. You are not impermanent. You are essence. You are an unlimited spiritual being who creates your experience through your thoughts, your beliefs, conscious and unconscious. You are a creator. You are a part of God. You are powerful. Your thoughts create your perceived reality. But you have forgotten that. Don't worry about why you have forgotten that, because the Course will explain that to you. But the thing that you want to remember is the ego is the part of you that believes you are a separate being. And the Course in Miracles says the part of you that believes it is a separate being has to confirm itself. I think I'm Earl Purdy. I've forgotten I'm the holy holy son of God. And so my ego, my sense of being Earl Purdy, that part of my mind that thinks I'm separate, it has to confirm itself. So there's a part of me that's trying to convince me that I am this body, this personality, this man named Earl Purdy. And it does that, the ego does that through appetites. So appetites just represent your attempt to affirm your separate identity as being what you really are. But you are not your separate identity. You are unlimited spirit. You are unlimited mind. You are greater than a body. So it says here, body appetites are not physical. Body appetites are really mental. First, you have the desire in your mind, and then that desire is projected onto the body. Every desire, every appetite for anything starts in your mind. So body appetites are not physical. It's never the body that's turning you on. It is your mind turning you on through the body and projecting that thought onto the body. Now, the part of you that believes that you are separate from God, the part of you that believes you're on your own, the part of you that believes that you are a human being, that part of you regards the body as its home. So wrong-mindedness, a person who has forgotten that they are one with everything and one with God, that person tries to satisfy themselves through the body. So people who have forgotten their spiritual identity constantly try to satisfy themselves through the body. So the ego, the person who has forgotten their spiritual identity, is constantly trying to get satisfaction through something the body does, or something that the body feels, or something that the body experiences. So the ego regards the body as its home and tries to satisfy itself through the body. So when you're identifying with the wrong part of yourself, when you're identifying with your fear or your sense of separation, then you are going to think that you live inside the body. So if you think you are inside your body, then you are identified with your ego. You are essentially being an ego. You're not an ego, but you're being an ego. And an ego is the part of your mind that has forgotten that it's connected to everybody and everything. Whew. The mind that doesn't know the truth regards the body as its home. The mind that has forgotten who it is. The person who has forgotten who they are regard the body as their home. Do you know that the person who has forgotten who they really are as a child of God, that person tries to satisfy themselves through the body? But the idea that it's possible for you to totally satisfy yourself through the body is a decision of your mind. So the Course says you have decided that you can satisfy yourself through the body because you have a mind that believes in lack. And since you have a mind that believes in lack, then you don't have a real lasting sense of charity, and you believe that you've got to get, that you have a drive to get. When you think you have lack, if you think you're lacking love, then you're trying to get love. Whatever you think you're lacking, do you know that that's what you are trying to get? So the ego, which is wrong-mindedness, when you're in your wrong mind, when you're in your ego mind, then you are never charitable and you don't give because you don't have a real and lasting sense of abundance. The person thinks they're full of lack, so they have to try to go out and get. But do you know that the Course says, that the idea that it's possible to satisfy yourself through the body is just a decision that you have made? Have you noticed that whenever you get anything in the physical world, it never completely, totally, and permanently satisfies you? Haven't you noticed that as soon as you get one thing, you immediately want more, and then you 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 want more? Have you noticed that almost anything or everything that you achieve, the best that it does is just give you some type of temporary pleasure, some type of temporary satisfaction? Haven't you noticed that? Haven't you noticed that? The Course in Miracles says, your belief that you can satisfy yourself through the body and not satisfy yourself through the mind and spirit is just a decision that you've made. You have decided that The part of you that believes that you are separate has decided that you're going to satisfy yourself through the body, even though nothing you ever do through the body ever completely satisfies you. So this idea that it's possible to satisfy yourself totally through the body permanently, do you know that's a decision of your mind? That's a decision of your mind. Do you know that your mind has become completely confused? What is it that your mind has become completely confused about? What is it that your mind has become completely confused about? Your mind has become completely confused about what's really possible. So what are we confused about? We are confused about what's possible. We are confused about what's possible. We are confused. What are we confused about? You are confused about what's possible for you to do. You are confused about what is really possible for you to do. So guess what? So if you notice, this section is given incredible definitions of the ego. So you really want to remember that this chapter is all about the ego, all about wrong-mindedness and how to recognize it and how not to give in to it. So the ego believes it is completely on its own. So if you believe that you are completely on your own, you are an ego. If you believe that you are completely on your own, you're making yourself an ego. You're seeing yourself as an ego. Because the false mind, the false self, believes it's completely on its own. Because that's just another way of describing how it thinks it originated. Doesn't it look like you kind of are on your own? Doesn't it look like sometimes that you believe you just kind of showed up and you don't really know how you got here and what really created you? Have you ever thought about that? It just kind of seems like, I know intellectually you say, that you came from your mother and your father, but if you really were to be honest with yourself, wouldn't you say that it's more like you just kind of look like you just kind of originated, you just kind of showed up? Now, what is a really fearful state? Well, the next sentence says, this is such a fearful state that it can only turn to other egos and try to unite with them in a feeble attempt at identification. Now, what does that mean? Well, I think I'm completely on my own. And so I think that's how I originated, that I just kind of showed up here. And that's frightening to believe that I'm completely on my own. So what do? Well, I turn to other people, other egos, other people who have forgotten their unlimited, eternal nature, right? So as a human being, then I turn to other human beings at a feeble attempt at identification. Or I either attack other human beings and other egos in an equally feeble show of strength. But the one thing that your ego isn't free to question, the one thing that your wrong-mindedness is not free to question, is the premise. Because the premise is the foundation of your fear. What premise is the foundation of your fear? What premise is the foundation of anyone's fear? What is the one idea that is the creator and the maker of all fear and anxiety? Well, the Course says it at the very top of the paragraph, in paragraph 8. It says, the ego is the part of the mind that believes it's completely on its own. So the believing that you are completely on your own and you got to just look out for yourself, the Course in Miracles says, then it makes you into a person who tries to have people that you identify with, and then you also have people that you have a tendency to want to get angry with and attack as part of a feeble show of strength. But what is it that your ego is not free to do? What is it that your wrong-mindedness is not free to do? It's not free to question the premise. What is the premise? That you are separate from God, that you're completely on your own, that you're all by yourself. And you hear people say that you come into the world alone and you leave the world alone. The ego is the belief that we are alone. It's the belief that we are separate. It's the belief that we're no longer connected to each other. And the ego is the belief that we're no longer connected to our Creator. That's what the ego is. It's a belief. It's a thought. but it's a belief and a thought that you are identifying with. How do you know you are identifying with it? How do you know if you are identifying with your ego? How do you know if you are identifying with the false self? Well, you give to get. You think if you give something away, it means you don't have it anymore. It means that you are not as charitable as you probably should be in different areas of your life because you don't have a real lasting sense of abundance. Do you try to completely satisfy yourself through the body? And I'm not putting down the pleasures or the enjoyment of the body. Don't misperceive me. The Course in Miracles is just saying that you cannot completely satisfy yourself through the body, that you can only completely satisfy yourself through the mind, through the spirit. So you can do things through the body and you're innocent even if you do, but you know that it never completely satisfies you, that you are continually still feeling like you need to get more. So that's how you know you're in your ego. So the Course in Miracles says, the premise that keeps fear going, the premise that keeps the ego going, the premise that keeps anxiety and lack and sickness and attack going is the premise that you are alone, the premise that you are completely on your own. So the ego is the part of you that believes you are out here by yourself trying to make it. That you is your ego. So the ego is the mind's belief that is completely on its own. So if you believe that you are completely on your own, you are wrong-minded. You are wrong-minded. You are in your ego. You're listening to the wrong voice. You're listening to the fake voice. So the ego is the mind's belief that is completely on its own. So you could say, my ego is my belief that I'm completely on my own. And do you know that the ego's attempts to gain God's acknowledgement and so establish its own existence are useless? See, when you think that you are alone, when you think that you are separate, then it will seem to you that God does not exist, that the Creator is not communicating with you. Because the Creator doesn't communicate with your ego. It doesn't communicate with the part of you that believes it's on its own. The Holy Spirit communicates with the part of you that's trying to let go of the belief that you are on your own and separate. So your ego's attempt to establish its own existence by getting God to talk to the part of you that wants to be separate, the Course says it's not going to work. The part of you that doesn't want to join, that doesn't want to unite, the part of you that is full of fear and anger and upset, that part will not be able to hear the voice for God. But there's another part of you, and that other you, the real you, is the one that the Course in Miracles is ultimately talking to. It's the you that I am talking to. I'm talking to the you that made you tune into this Course in Miracles presentation. I'm talking to the you that does the workbook. I'm talking to the you that will study. I'm talking to the you that listens to classes and always wants to remember to be more loving. I'm talking to the you that really wants peace and abundance and healing and joy. I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to that fake you. I'm not talking to the you that thinks it's completely on its own, that only believes in giving to get, that thinks that it is autonomous. So the ego is the mind's belief that is completely on its own. So really, spirit, do you know that spirit is not even aware of the ego? Spirit isn't even aware of the part of you that thinks you could be separate from love. It's not even aware of that part. Spirit is aware of you. Spirit is aware of you. You can reach spirit. Now, spirit is unaware of the ego. Really, spirit doesn't even attack your ego. So love will never attack your fearful mind. A loving person will never attack a fearful person. A loving person would never attack a person that's feeling guilty and afraid and depressed, because love doesn't attack. So if I'm really becoming my true loving self, and you're really becoming your true loving self, you will be incapable of attack. But you won't need to attack, because when you truly are in touch with your true nature, when you are truly being the loving being that you are, then you would not attract violence and attack to you in the first place. Listen to what I just said. When you remember that you are spirit, when you remember your true identity, you're going to experience yourself at a level of love and a level of peace that you would not attract any kind of lack or attack or sickness or unhappiness to you. So a loving conscious being does not attack the ego. So you would not attack the people around you who are still in fear and anger and projection and think that they are bodies. Because spirit can't even really conceive of the idea of separation. Spirit can't even conceive of the ego, which is an idea that we could be disconnected from each other. See, the whole idea that we could be here and be alone and not have love and support and spirit backing us up and helping us, that thought is so alien to love that love can't even conceive of you being without help and not helping you. So while the ego is equally unaware of spirit, your ego is not aware of God, but your ego does perceive itself as being rejected by something greater than itself. The Course in Miracles says, do you know there's a part of you that's mad as hell at God? There's a part of you that's mad as hell at the Creator for putting you in a world where it looks like you're on your own and you got to make it with so many dangers threatening you and your loved ones, broken into by a few times that you go on a vacation or something, or go out to a club or play a little bit. So the Course in Miracles says there's a part of us that feels like it's being rejected by something greater than itself. And that's why self-esteem in ego terms must be delusional. The creations of God do not create myths, although creative effort can be turned to mythology. We have been channeling our creative efforts to mythology. What does that mean? Well, it means that you need to understand that a myth is entirely perceptual, that a myth is ambiguous in form, that a myth, something that's not really true, is characteristically good and evil in nature. So whenever you're dealing with the idea of good and evil, you're dealing with mythology. You're dealing with something that's not really true. There's no such thing as good and evil. There's love and the call for love. There is love and the call for love. There is no such thing as good and evil. There is love and the call for love. There is love and the call for love. There's no such thing as good and evil. What you call evil is a call for help. It's a call for God. It's a call for love. So even the most benevolent of myths, which have to do with good and evil, they're not without fearful connotations. Because you just think about it. When you hear the word evil, that can be a word that makes a person feel fear. So the word evil is not a comforting word. So any type of myth has fearful connotations. So I'm going to stop right here and do a recap of what I've covered so far in Hardcore Course in Miracles. And do you know the one thing that's most important to do is for you to listen to this at least 4 times, because it's the repetition that makes the difference, because you're trying to learn how to recognize when you're using wrong-minded thinking so that you will stop creating fear and pain and lack for yourself. I'm Earl Purdy. I'm a full-time teacher of A Course in Miracles. It would be wonderful if you made a donation. I would appreciate that. That would be great. You can do that on my website, earlpurdy.com, earlpurdy.com, P-U-R-D-Y. But you can also use Venmo. You can use the Cash App. You can use PayPal. You can use Zelle. All you need is my email address. And my email address is earlpurdy@earlpurdy.com. earlpurdy@earlpurdy.com. If you'd like to work with me personally and take advantage of 40 years of working with people, teaching them how to apply these principles to their everyday life so that they can experience the miracles that A Course in Miracles promises, and you want to do some deeper work, I have what I call clarity sessions with people. Go to my website. Okay. If it blanks off like that, don't go anywhere. Just stay there, stay there. I'll come back. That was just a poor connection, okay? And like I was saying, do a one-on-one. I have people that I mentor, that I coach, that I mentor, that I coach, and that I also work as an advisor in the sense of showing them another way they can deal with whatever they're dealing with. And for those who are open-minded to the more psychic, intuitive side of things, I have been an astrologer and a numerologist for over 4 decades. And so you can also take advantage of that service with me, all with the same goal of teaching only love and getting in touch with the happiness and joy in our true identity. I'm available. I'm available. Help is available. I am available. I'm available. So I'm available. Okay. All right. Now, on Sundays at 1 p.m. Mountain Time on Facebook Live, on the Earl Purdy page, I do another Course in Miracles class, and I also do it in front of a live audience, as well as broadcasting it and streaming it over Facebook. That's 1 p.m. Mountain Time on the Earl Purdy page on Facebook on Sundays. On Thursdays, we do Hardcore Course in Miracles, which is what we're doing right now. When I especially do a class for people who are studying A Course in Miracles and would like to take advantage of someone who's been doing it a very long time to save themselves some time and better understand it. That's why I work with the book. That's why I work out of the book. So that's at 7 p.m. Mountain Time on the Earl Purdy page on Facebook. Also, I put all of my classes on YouTube. I have hundreds and hundreds of classes on YouTube and on my website that you can also watch and listen to. So I make what I do available to everyone. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your generosity. I really do. So let's do a recap. Let's do a recap of what we heard today. Now, don't forget that what's so cool about what we just got through doing is that we are learning about the ego. It's really important for you to understand one thing. If you believe that you are completely on your own, then you are being an ego. That means you are identifying with the wrong thought. Wrong thinking is thinking that you're separate. Wrong thinking is thinking that you are guilty. Wrong thinking is thinking that you are lacking in some way. Wrong thinking is believing that you are a body that can be sick. Wrong thinking is believing that attack is going to get you something that you want. The ego is the sense of being a separate entity. And doesn't that sound like human beings? Doesn't it, when the Course in Miracles describes the ego, doesn't it sound like it's describing you and me in terms of how we relate to our day-to-day reality a lot of the time? So remember that if you want to become more charitable, then you have to have a real lasting sense of abundance. And the Course in Miracles teaches that a miracle is a state of completion and abundance. A miracle is a state of completion and abundance. Abundance is your natural state. Abundance is your natural state. And if you're not aware of your abundance, then that means you have some beliefs that are not true. Beliefs that are not true are called ego thoughts. So ego thoughts are just thoughts that are based on things that are not true. So what's not true? What's not true is any idea that you're really separate from your source and separate from God. What's not true is any kind of condemnation and judgment about you being unworthy. So remember, when you're dealing with an ego, when you're dealing with a person that doesn't know the truth, who's full of fear and lack, that's going to be a person who only gives because they think they're going to get something better. That's going to be a person who's always comparing themselves to other people. A person that's in their wrong mind is a person who feels like they're under a lot of stress. So your ego can only live, your fear can only live if you keep comparing yourself to other people. What is the other thing we were told? We were told that appetites are getting mechanisms. So pay attention to the things that you have the most appetite for, the things that you try to get. Another thing, do you know another thing that the Course told us was that the ego, the part of you that has forgotten that you are one with everyone and one with God, that part of you believes that it's inside of your body. So the you that thinks you're inside of the body, that is the you that is believing that it is an ego. And so when you think that you're an ego and you think that you're separate, then you constantly have a lot of appetites of one type or another. And you try to satisfy yourself through getting something through the body. And that's just a decision that you've made. And so that's a decision that keeps you confused about what's really possible. So the belief that you are completely on your own, that is the cause of your fear, comes from the belief that you are on your own. That is what causes fear. We are whole. There's nothing missing in us. The ego is the mind's belief is completely on its own. Spirit, love, is unaware of the fear, and spirit will never attack you, even when you're in your ego, because spirit can't conceive of you being by yourself on your own without help. Now, your ego feels like it's being rejected. There's a part of your mind, you might have thoughts in your mind that believe you're being rejected by something greater than yourself. That's just the ego. Don't pay any attention to it. That's just wrong-mindedness. There's no such thing as good and evil. There's no such thing as good and evil. There is love, and then there are people out there calling for love, calling for help, calling for healing. Now, the people who are calling for love, calling for help, and calling for healing, those are the people that you see experiencing anger and guilt and grievances and attack. Those people that you call evil, those are people who are insane. By insane, I mean they think that they are guilty. They think they are alone. They think they are unloved. They're full of fear. They're calling for help. They're calling for love. They're calling for love. So, mighty companion, listen to this. Watch this over and over again. Learn this new thought system. Learn more about the thought system of the ego, which is the thought system we need to let go of. We need to learn and understand how it operates. You are unlimited. You are incredible. Listen to me. You are abundant. You have abundant thoughts in you. You have a real lasting sense of abundance. You've just forgotten about it. You have a little amnesia. You have a little amnesia. You have amnesia. You have amnesia. You have amnesia. You have forgotten who you are, and the course, and me, and you, and your brothers and sisters, we all are helping you to remember who you really are. I love you. You are priceless. I hope you appreciate what I'm doing. I would love to feel that and know that. And many of you really expressed that, and I want to thank you for that. Thank you. I have an ego too that I'm also trying to let go, right? Also, that's why I'm teaching what I need to learn. I am teaching. I'm teaching what I need to learn. I am teaching. I'm teaching what I need to learn. I am teaching. The Course in Miracles says you need to teach what you want to learn. Whatever you want to learn, you need to teach. You need to demonstrate whatever you really want to learn. So I'm giving so that I can receive. I'm not giving to get. I'm giving to receive. You're not giving to get when you're in your right mind. You're giving and receiving. Mighty companion, you know what? Mighty companion, may the Course be with you. Please share my video and sign up for my contact list on my website. I love you.